Hi there to your viewers of Equinoxe Television. We thank you so much for always being with us. On this edition of the news, right away with our major stories, we begin in Bamenda, where friends and colleagues of Anye Aden saw the journalist who was brutally killed in the northwest region of the country are still in shock and in tears after the official communique by the Minister for Communication, Rene Emmanuel Sadi. We made a stop over at the radio station in which Aden Saw worked and met the people or his colleagues in total tears. Plus, over 100 people, among them internally displaced persons from the northwest and the southwest regions, are now stranded. The shops from where they managed to earn a living have been destroyed, and reporters went back to Marché de la Gare one day after the demolition exercise. They will be telling you more about the suffering of the people there in this edition of the news. Stay with us. Welcome back, viewers. We thank you so much for being with us. My name is Anna Bilaleke. We begin this edition of the news with this human interest story here in Douala. After the demolition exercise at Marché de la Gare here in Douala, in the Douala 2 subdivision to be more precise, where over 100 shops were destroyed. It is a different phase today. Our reporter Lucy Liengu Asia was at the site as she tells us in the report which comes up next, some traders could still be seen stranded trying to gather what they could recover, while some other persons seized the opportunity to carry out activities for personal interest. Her report.
We are at the Marché de la Gare in the Douala 2 subdivision where demolition exercise took place. Traders can still be seen on the side struggling to recover one or two of what they lost as a result of the demolition. While others complain, government's action is sending them home with frustration.
Common man is feeding in this market. There is unemployment in the country. There is no job. This is where people find themselves to earn a living. There are people with children in the house that are feeding in this market. There are children that are in school. They are feeding in this market. So the situation is critical. We are still waiting for the government to say something, or for the mayor of this locality to say something, to come out with something, because people are stranded. And it will push many people to join robbery. The country is not good. Yeah, the economy is not easy.
Not having a place to settle, some business persons have created space for themselves by the roadside where they can sell their goods.
Now, presently, we are selling on the road in the risks that we can have an accident when taxi or motorcycle come, we will not have where to go or to run.
While on the side we can see workers of the Douala 2 Council trying to clear off the stones, the blocks. Information gotten from the Douala 2 Council, the site is going to be used for the construction of a modern market and also to fight against urban disorder experienced in the Douala 2 municipality and its environs. The demolition exercise is an opportunity for some road users who stopped by to extract iron, firewood, while others could be seen breaking blocks for their personal use. The victims, the traders, are calling on the government to compensate them. Why not provide a space for them to settle or market their goods? For Equinoxe TV, I am Monsieur Lucy Liengu and Cedric Shuna.
Thank you, Lucy Liengu is here for that report. And now on to Bonaberi, where family members and the widow of 37-year-old Kidsi Roland say they want justice for Roland, their son and husband, who was threatened to be killed and finally murdered. We got reports that Roland was kidnapped, tied up and dumped into the Vuri River. They wonder if Douala has become a jungle where threatened, kidnapped and killed within the city is now very current. Roland, a reporter, tells us in the report which comes up next, leaves behind a widow and 4 young orphans.
37-year-old Roland lastly spoke with his wife through a video call at about 2 a.m. breaking Sunday, May 7, 2023. Among other things, Roland told the wife that the threats on his life were intense and he will be spending the night in a hotel which is more secured around Rebecca in Bonnerberry.
Telling me that it's like that he cannot come back home because they threatened him that these 2 days they will kill him. That these are the 2 days that they will talk about and he cannot come back home. That he's lodging in the hotel. We were talking, I saw him in the hotel room, just sitting. The way his mouth was not a good one, the way he was talking, he was afraid. And then after that, I dropped the call because I needed to enter the theater.
Roland had been receiving life-threatening calls, and at each moment he confided in his wife, close friends and family members.
He told me, say, sister, I be no problem where they be get them for credit union. I say yes. I say, now waiting. He said they don't call you for some private number. They talk for you, say, they know place where they stay, they know place where they drink, they know place where they go, any place where they stay, they know. And the thing I say, after 2 days, they must kill you.
The threatening calls didn't come without a condition. Roland clearly told family members and friends what the callers wanted of him.
One cooperative from their village that they started here together. The cooperative have an issue. That money was missing, he told me like that. 70 million or something like that. So they took the case and went with it to the court. Some of the people he was working with received threatening calls that if they don't also stay away from the case, their lives will be at stake as well, because that's what he told me. He was threatening more than others because he is the vice president.
Family members say their suspicions that Roland was assassinated got reinforced by the signs they saw on his lifeless body.
And when I saw his body, I saw a wound at the level of his chest and by the side. And then the eyes were burst. And also the body had some burns. So those are signs of torture. I believe and I know that he did not die a natural death.
Roland wasn't only a father to his 4 young children who have now become orphans, but a benefactor to the Wainama community and his neighbors in Bonnerberry in general.
Roland was trustworthy. He was a nice person. Even, for example, if you see, he's a kid brother, a young man of about 30 going to 40, but the Banso community decided to come and make their Ngurong house in his place. He's nobody. That's just to show how good this guy was.
Calling for justice for Roland and his colleagues who are also being threatened, family members wonder if Douala has become a jungle where somebody will be promised death and finally kidnapped and killed within the same city.
Sad indeed. And colleagues and friends continue to mourn the journalist Anyen Deso, who was brutally killed in Bamenda by alleged separatist fighters. Our Northwest regional correspondent, Boo Stella, today visited the radio station where he worked and met his colleagues in total tears, especially after the communique of the Minister for Communication condemning that gruesome act.
Journalists have continued to mourn following the killing of one of them, Anyen Deso, on Sunday night. The journalist was shot at the Church Street neighborhood in Bamenda, where he normally animated in bars around. On Monday, a separatist leader claimed in a video a faction of separatist fighters is responsible for the killing of the journalist. He also said it was a mistake of identity. At Dream FM Radio, where he worked, it has been a bitter pill for his colleagues to swallow.
When I say when I make mistake, when I want to shoot commandant, when I go kill this innocent journalist, this orphan, with a small picking on your border, but when he suffer, after school, he honored them. When I say a mistake for identity, what a mistake.
Anyen Deso will be buried this weekend in Bamenda.
Tell them who kill you and how they kill you for Bamenda because you are a journalist and you know less find them.
You heard in that report that the journalist was not a target. Now let's listen to a human rights advocate on the issue of mistaken identity by the separatist fighters allegedly.
And the reading of a motion of support. At the tail end of it, Your Excellencies, for you to rise for the singing of the national anthem.
Anoint this place with the precious blood of Jesus Christ, that all that stands against your children pray, for I have it.
What's most annoying is that, you cannot be, blaming or mistaken identity, because first of all, you need to watch your movements, you need to watch your actions, you need to actually have a mastery of what you're doing, wherever you're doing it, without necessarily justifying any act or actually standing or advocating for whoever that's standing and doing what. But that when you are engaging your actions, may be able to distinguish between civilians and people involved in armed conflict in that circumstance. Try as much as possible to limit or withdraw from population or from the civilian end, so that you definitely do not get, them caught in these situations of this nature. It's actually troubling that a young dynamic journalist of that nature, a greater one in the making, you don't know what definitely is going to be tomorrow. Life has just been seized away from me like that and give us excuses that, it was a mistaken identity. How does that sound in your mouth? Mistaken identity? And we can't be told exactly how it happened. Why him? Mistaken identity, we're told. What was it for? It's unfortunate, right? And it's a regrettable situation. I don't think we need to have to keep talking about things of this nature, rather than taking the appropriate actions on ground to roll off what's going on.
And now the Minister for Communication, Rene Emmanuel Sadi, yesterday sent out a communique condemning fervently the gruesome murder of the journalist in Bamenda. Once again, Gabi Ambo also talks on the several communiques sent out after the journalist's demise.
I want to think that we do not need to wait for people to be killed before communiques come in afterwards to either condemn or speak for, accept or deny. What's important to me is that we put in place the requisite institutions or actions on ground, to go to check against such violations and abuses before we get there. Communiques, of course, may not help us. Would you agree? It's admitting at times or denying certain actions that have been taken. It's actually good for government to go to state clearly, its own position on actions of that nature. But how does it help the family actually that have lost the persons? These are supposed to have been actions taken prior to situations like this. And so these are actions that need to be monitored and followed up and ensure that we take off the civilians, from actions of this nature. We are in a program we call the Protection of the Unarmed Civilians. It's a project that's ongoing now. Our action is to ensure that civilians are kept away from any armed conflict, like what's going on in our West and Southwest now. Try as much as possible to distinguish between the civilian and then the non-civilian, or the non-combatants or the combatants in that circumstance. It's troubling, it's annoying, it's a worrying situation in that circumstance.
And now we talk something else. From the Northwest region to the Southwest region today, sons and daughters of the Southwest region today met under the canopy of the Southwest Peace and Development Forum. They strategized on how to bring back lasting peace to the region that has been hit by over 6-year-old armed conflict. Participants say they are tired of continuous killings, kidnappings and burning ongoing in the region. Representing the Prime Minister, Ebune Confiance applauded the fact that the population is yearning for peace to return. He assured them that their plights will be taken to the right quarters and concrete actions will be brought forth. Right now, let's listen to Honorable Naya Likunze Saline, a regional councillor, and Senator Bella Muki Charles, who were participants in today's peace conference in Boya. Now let's listen to a councillor of the Southwest Regional Council, Honorable Naya Likunze Saline, and also Senator Bella Muki Charles, who were all participants in today's peace conference in Boya. And now we talk something else. We now move on to this other report. The U.S. ambassador to South Africa accused the country that was Thursday of providing weapons and ammunition to Russia for its war in Ukraine via a cargo ship that docked secretly at a naval base near the city of Cape Town for 3 days in December. And in Sudan, we are now out of the country. Sudan belligerents signed commitments to protect civilians in the ongoing war in their country. Details with Mala Glory.
This is the first step to providing relief for trapped civilians. They agreed to allow safe passage for people leaving battle zones, protect relief workers, and not to use civilians as human shields. However, they didn't agree to pause the fighting. There are reports of more airstrikes and shelling in the capital Khartoum this Friday. The talks have been mediated by the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. The U.S. officials said they were cautiously hopeful there was momentum now for the safe delivery of relief supplies, as both sides committed to let in board badly needed humanitarian assistance after looting and attacks that targeted aid. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia said there is still more work to be done. According to the Arab News, other steps will follow, and the most important thing is to adhere to what was agreed upon.
Move across the borders and to the destinations that they wanted. And South Sudan is a lot more complicated when it comes to accessibility, roads, enormous distances.
And over to South Africa, the U.S. ambassador to South Africa accused the country Thursday of providing weapons and ammunition to Russia for its war in Ukraine via a cargo ship that docked secretly at a naval base near the city of Cape Town for 3 years in December. Questions were raised in South Africa's parliament on Thursday, and President Cyril Ramaphosa said an investigation was on the way. Ramaphosa was in Cape Town answering questions in parliament when news of Bridges' comments broke. Ammunition supply have become a problem for Russia in the war. The leader of the Russian private army Wagner complained last week that his mercenary soldiers in Ukraine were allegedly dealing with dire shortages. In a statement issued later Thursday, Ramaphosa's office acknowledged a Russian ship named Lady R docked in South Africa, but the office did not say where or what the purpose of the stop was. The statement criticized the American ambassador for going public and said there was an agreement that U.S. intelligence service will provide whatever evidence they have to aid South Africa's investigation.
And now let's take our weekend sports roundup. The title of the Elite One Championship that was with Cotton Sport of Garua will be put in 2 contests this weekend at the playoffs to determine the Elite One champions begins. Meanwhile, Fecafoot says they'll file an appeal at the Switzerland Federal Court of Contest to contest the decision of the Courts of Arbitration for Sports over Antonio Conceição's case. Smart Dikan Gabriel has our weekend sports roundup.
The Final Four battle for the title of the Elite One League Trophy starts this weekend in Douala. During day 1 of the playoffs, Canon Sportive of Yaoundé will challenge Bambutus of Mbuda, while the Garua Derby will see Greenhorns Gazelle FC rubbing shoulders with Big Brothers Cotton Sport. Pre-match press conferences ahead of the playoffs have been programmed at the Bonamusadi training pitch conference room. All of the matches of the Final Four will take place at the Reunification Stadium in Bipanda. In other sport news, the Court of Arbitration for Sport, CAS, has ruled in favor of the former head coach of the Indomitable Lions, Antonio Conceição da Silva Oliveira, against Fecafoot. After the abusive termination of the contract of Tony in 2021 by Samuel Eto'o, the Braga native reported the case to CAS, who ruled that Fecafoot was supposed to pay Antonio Conceição da Silva Oliveira about £1 billion CFA. In reaction to this, Samuel Eto'o appealed the ruling, but once again, CAS has favored Tony. Reports say that Fecafoot is planning to do another appeal letter again, this time around to the Swiss Federal Court. Elsewhere, Cameroonian international goalkeeper Andre Onana's name has appeared on the sheet of the best UEFA Champions League player for the week. The performance of Andre Onana with Internazionale of Milan keeping at least 7 clean sheets earned him the goalkeeping spot in the top 11 of the week. We conclude this weekend sports roundup with basketball. The clubs to play in this year's Cup of Cameroon semi-finals in basketball will be known by Sunday evening. The quarter-final of the Cup of Cameroon in basketball will be coming up at the Sports Complex Basketball Court in Yaoundé this weekend. The qualified teams for the quarter-final includes RS Kip, Overdose Upstation, and Onyx, all of Yaoundé, alongside Batiston University and École de Basketball, all of Douala for the women's category. In the men's category, Alf, Onyx, and Beyak, all of Yaoundé, alongside AS Bonaberi, École de Basketball, and Douala Firebirds will be gunning for a semi-final spot.
Thank you very much, Smart. And viewers, that does it for this edition of the news. You don't go anywhere. As usual, our programs continue. The news in the French language comes up at 8 p.m. with Nadine Yambu, and Serge Along Oto will be in the studio in about 25 minutes for Equinoxe Soir. Have a blessed weekend in the company of programs on Equinoxe Television. Bye-bye for now.
Equinoxe Télévision, au-delà de l'image.